Hi everyone, my name is Danielle. Welcome to another episode of Board Game Bakes. This week we're going to feature Kate May, which is produced by Thunderworks Game, and it feels like a fitting game to do right now because it's 80-something degrees here when it was 40 earlier in the week, but who knows with the weather. We're going to recreate the beautiful lighthouse on the cover as a strawberry cake with cream cheese frosting, and it's going to be our first attempt as a sculpted cake because we're going to make the whole cake look like a lighthouse. In the game, you're able to move around and buy businesses and houses that you're able to develop to earn income to then buy more things. So it kind of has a Monopoly feel, but it's very thematic, a little lighter, and just a beautiful game. So we're going to try and do it justice and make this beautiful lighthouse for us to eat later. Let's get started. This is a red and white lighthouse, so I decided to go with a strawberry cake for the red element and cream cheese frosting as the white element. You could add some red food coloring to the cake once you're done the batter to give it more red effect, but I chose to avoid adding the dye. Start by pureeing 16 ounces of fresh or previously frozen strawberries. Pour them into a saucepan and cook them over medium heat until it's reduced to 1/3 of its volume. Pour this into another container and reserve for later in the process. To make our batter, combine 5 cups of flour, 4 teaspoons baking powder, 1 teaspoon baking soda, and 1 teaspoon of salt in a small bowl and mix together with a whisk. In our mixing bowl, we're going to add 12 tablespoons or 1½ sticks of softened unsalted butter, 8 tablespoons of oil, and 3 cups of sugar. We're going to mix that until it's nice and smooth and fluffy. After that, add in 6 eggs, but we're going to add them one at a time, which will help avoid curdling in the batter. The next step in the recipe said to combine the strawberry sauce we created, our flour mixture, and 1 cup of sour cream in 3 batches. So I decided to take it literally and add a little bit of each 3 times. Once you've added your last batch, add 4 teaspoons of vanilla extract. Try not to overmix the batter, so it'll make it gummy and start the gluten to develop. Pour the batter into a large pan that's been sprayed with cooking spray and lined with parchment paper. Cook for 20 minutes at 325 degrees Fahrenheit until a toothpick comes out mostly clean. Once your sheet pan has cooled a bit, remove the cake from the pan and remove the parchment paper. Use large circle cookie cutters to cut out progressively smaller circles. I try to get 3 of each of my larger circles, so this way the cake didn't look like it had too much of a triangle. You kind of want it to be mostly cylindrical. Once they have completely cooled, you can either put your cake together or wrap them in plastic wrap and freeze them until you're ready. Freezing the cakes will also make it easier to carve too. After completing the cake, I'm aware that this is enough cake to make a lighthouse, but you can also do 1 extra batch of the recipe and make 2 6-inch pans, which need almost 40 minutes to cook, which was a lot longer than I was anticipating. Then you have a super large amount of cake. Let's make some tasty cream cheese frosting. The key is to make sure that your butter and cream cheese are at room temperature. Combine 2 8-ounce blocks of cream cheese, full fat, and 1 cup of unsalted butter in a mixture on medium speed until smooth. Reduce your speed to low and add in 6 cups of powdered sugar. Yep, 6 cups, and this is a double batch. With the mixer on low, then add in 1/4 teaspoon of salt and 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract. Once you're not afraid of being sprayed by powdered sugar, increase your speed to high and mix until it's light and fluffy. If you want to be thicker, you could add more of the powdered sugar. You want to be thin enough that you can spread it, but a little on the thicker side so it doesn't ooze out of your cake. Let's start to put the cake together. After you have secured a bamboo rod to the cake stand, put a little icing on the cake board, and this is going to act as a glue to make sure your cake stays put. Spread icing over the cake layer and make it as smooth and flat as possible. I decided to start by placing one of my 6-inch cakes as the base. Now, you don't want to put too much frosting on top of it because you don't want your cake to slide while you're carving, but you still want to at least have a little bit because it's cream cheese frosting. You can line your cakes up on the counter so that it goes boom, 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 cake, icing. Add a few of your second largest cakes until you have about a foot tall tower. You could pre-poke the cake layer before putting it on so that you don't need to apply as much pressure to your cake stand. Let your cake sit in the fridge for at least a half hour or so your icing can harden before you carve your cake. Once it's hard enough, do small cuts and long strokes to make sure that you're only able to move the cake that you intend. So you want to just try and cut off little bits at a time. You also are applying icing on it, which will either help or hurt its lighthouse shape. I think mine kind of got a butt. Now apply a thin coat over the whole thing with your frosting and let it sit in the fridge before you apply the thicker coat, which will be your top layer of frosting. You can use the same process to create a little lighthouse entrance. This time, carve the cake so that it has straight sides and a slanted roof. You also need 2 of your smallest cakes that you're going to just ice the single cake layer to make the 2 top cakes of your lighthouse. Hi! While you're here, make sure you hit subscribe for new videos every Tuesday at 12 p.m. EST featuring even more fun games. Thanks! Time to get decorating. The nice thing about this cake is that the decorations are mostly red and white fondant with a little black. Sometimes when you prep cookies there are 15 or colors, so 3 is nice. Use your red fondant to make most of the details. Shove about a 1.5 inch blob into a small bowl to give you a dome shape. Push down on it so there's a little bit of fondant extending past the bowl. Flip it out and let it rest on parchment paper until it's needed. Flatten 2 little balls of fondant and attach them on the top of that with a little water, and finally roll a 1/2 inch sphere to top your roof. I originally tried doing fences there's a circle and a hexagon fence on the cover, but the proportions and things didn't really work out. So the circle one up top doesn't really need a fence at all, and we're going to do a modified one for the hexagon. So we're going to roll out the fondant, and now you want to cut out a circle and a hexagon, and create little tiny squares to put on the corners and spaces between of your hexagon. Now roll out the fondant again, and cut out another hexagon, and this time use a smaller hexagon to cut out the center and make a hole. Let that border dry, and then you could gently place it on top of your bottom hexagon. And this is going to be the bottom standing area. Time to roll out some fondant. You need to roll out a large, about 2 feet wide piece of fondant that's about 1/8 of an inch thick. It's going to be white for your main lighthouse. Roll it onto your rolling pin, and then you want to smooth out the top and pull gently as you smooth down the cake from top to bottom. Repeat the same process for your small building, except obviously you don't need a 2 feet wide piece. Pinch the corners of your building to try to give it a nice sharp edge. Also roll out a small rectangle of the red, and this is going to go on top of your little house for the roof. Take another minute to roll out some red fondant for your small red cake and white fondant for the small white cake. Roll out some of the black fondant, and you're going to use this to create windows for the lighthouse and the door windows for your small house. To attach the house portion onto your cake, cut off most of the extra fondant around the back of your cake and stick it to your chosen part of your lighthouse as close as you could get it. Use extra fondant strips to seal the gap and attach it to the lighthouse. At this point you can roll out a long piece of white fondant, and you want this to be a little thicker, so about 1/4 inch thick, and cut a thin strip for around the top of your lighthouse and a thicker one for around the bottom. Before assembling the top of the lighthouse, take some edible paint to add brown, blue, and yellow colors for the light part of your lighthouse. You can also use edible red marker to add lines onto your roof to give the illusion that it's a dodecahedron instead of a circle. Before placing your hexagon on the cake, use a piping tip to put a hole in the bottom so it won't crack when you're putting pressure on it. And you're going to put your cake next, and once again you can put a hole in it so this way you don't have to push down too hard. After your red cake, you're going to put on your circle, your painted cake, and the roof. Then step back, take pictures of your masterpiece, and eat your cake. Yum! Thanks for watching another episode of Board Game Bakes. I hope you enjoyed seeing all the different cake pieces come together to make our beautiful lighthouse. When I served the cake, I actually wound up just cutting horizontally across and giving people circle slices. You wound up getting a lot of icing. It was very tasty. This game reminds me of summer. What other games do you have that remind you of summer or spring? Let me know in the comments below, and while you're down there, make sure you hit like so more people see the video. Keep playing games and keep them sweet. Bye!